failure.
It's been a crazy past few days as Ark's publisher Snail Games has been on one epic roller coaster of a ride, while Ascended has seen its fair share of happenings as well. Plus, there's an interesting bit here concerning money and Studio Wildcard. So, after a long break away from Ark, I felt it was time to dive back in and bring you the latest. If you're new here, please consider hitting subscribe. If you're on mobile, please swipe to hype the video. But before we dive into the latest from Ark, a quick word from today's sponsor. As gamers, we've all been there. A new game comes out and you're unsure if you should pull the trigger and go ahead and purchase it, and that's where today's sponsor, LUDEO, comes in. Instead of purchasing a game outright and worrying about return policies or freeing up 150 gigs worth of download space, LUDEO removes all of that hassle by giving gamers the ability to experience real gameplay through bite-sized moments all through the cloud with no downloads via a web browser. All that's required of you is that you click the start button and you're dropped into the action. LUDEO's unique SDK is able to integrate with many of the industry's game engines, giving you access to various titles. Here, checking out 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 subscribers should be very familiar with.
Victory was never in doubt.
LUDEO's in beta right now, but there's a ton of potential with this format, including removing friction for gamers between first hearing about a game and then eventually getting to demo it for themselves. It's also immediate, taking advantage of the power of cloud gaming, and for developers, it gives them yet another avenue to connect with a new audience with instantaneous access. To play moments just like these right now, check in the video description for the links to various titles and join the LUDEO Discord to help shape this unique product through its beta. Man, it feels like forever since I ventured into the land of Ark, with my last upload coming back in mid-August 2025, where at that time I had spoken with sources within Snail concerning Aquatica's future, which we're going to touch on a bit later. But we might as well start with the current, Survival Ascended. Now, back in January, Ascended saw its highest player counts since launch, with a tad over 50,000 concurrent on Steam, which is roughly half the totals it saw when it dropped back in October 2023. Xbox looks like Ascended is currently in the top 75-ish most played, while on PlayStation, it's the 36th most played game, with an impressive 2.25 hours played per session. Overall, it looks like Studio Wildcard are pushing what they can out the door with a steady release roadmap, at least planned, for 2026 into 2027. But as anyone knows, it's been around Ark for any length of time. Missing release dates are not the exception with the studio, they're the norm. 𝗲𝗄𝐽𝗍 has already touted the upcoming release of the Unreal Engine 5.7 update as one that will add approximately 33% performance gains on existing Ark maps, driven primarily by new nanite virtualized culling for foliage. Now, the last time we heard anything on that update, it was slated to drop sometime in late March or April. Studio Sirens was pulled off of Aquatica once Snail shuttered that one, now being assigned to the rebirth of Survival of the Fittest, and I've honestly lost track of how many times SOTF has been reborn only to once again die. June 2026 has both Gen Part 1 and Bob's True Tales, Tides of Fortune penciled in, while the end of 2026 is said to be bringing in Ark World creator and Dragontopia, which looks kind of interesting. 2027 already has 4 quarterly releases, with Ark Atlantis in Q1, Bob's Galaxy Wars, Gen Part 2, and Ark Legacy of Santiago Part 1, but many fans are still wondering where in the hell 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗏, Crystal Isles, and Lost Island will eventually appear in Ascendant's roadmap. Now, while I was taking a break from Ark, the Lost Colony expansion was released, and checking in on this one via Steam shows it's overall not faring very well, at least in terms of reviews, with a 37% rating along with a mostly negative score. Now, sadly, Steam does not track hours played on DLCs, but the reviews kind of tell us everything we need to know, with most complaints centered on poor performance, crashing, and monetization. Now, personally, I passed on purchasing Lost Colony, but poor performance is kind of the hallmark of Ark Ascended, even when possessing a super high-powered PC, and although it has been through a bunch of internal updates in an attempt to kind of smooth out its gameplay, FPS drops and lag are still all too common within Ark. I've also received and read quite a few of your messages from Xbox and PlayStation 5 users stating that the current version of Ascended is unplayable, with constant crashes, boots to the main console screens, or complete shutdowns and reboots of the console being the main issue. Some were speculating it had to do with the baked-in autosave function, while another few said that there were overall sync issues with the game. But if you're out there and playing Ascended on console, maybe you could drop a comment about how the game performs specifically for you, and especially any workarounds you've discovered and deployed to boost your performance. Jumping to a little more current, 5 days ago on April 10th, my phone started going nuts with pings from the official Ark Discord, and since then we've seen 8 alerts relating to the official network, cloud data situation, and transfers, with some players who lost their characters in that transfer being directed to submit a character restoration report. But this has always been a super dicey affair with Ark, especially when transfers are first activated once a new map goes live. And for those of you who've been around Ark for any length of time, you know. Also, the new 𝗲𝗄𝗎, introduced in last week's Community Crunch and voted on during the Extra Life event, is looking rather interesting, and that creature should be arriving to the game somewhere in the near future. But yeah, in general, Ark 1.5, Ascended, whatever the hell you want to call it, keeps existing to serve as a source of income for Wildcard, which they've said and admitted to as much in the past, and it also serves as a test bed for the eventual arrival of Ark 2. We first saw Ark 2 revealed at the 2020 Game Awards, with its first release date slated for 2022, and since then it's been pushed back too many times to mention. It was said it was coming in 2027, and then Studio Wildcard moved it to sometime in 2028. Now, Vin Diesel's character was prominently shown in that trailer, and from the minute it was shown at the Game Awards, Ark players' antenna went into hyperdrive with excitement. Even now, years after it was announced, Ark 2 is still charting in Steam's top 10 most wishlisted games, but the biggest questions behind the next evolution in Ark, besides when and if the game will eventually launch, has always been how intense would Vin Diesel's involvement actually be. On the project, he holds the title of President of Creative Convergence, whatever in the hell that means, but you know, we had concerns a while back when he was going through his own personal and legal issues, and now how long Ark 2 has been in the process, according to 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Studio Wildcard, how involved Vin is with the role of Santiago may be cut back significantly. But it looks like Studio Wildcard may already have a plan in the works, as Karl Urban, shown here as Huge Karl, was revealed as part of a PCGamer article, and he's already been involved with Bob's Tall Tales. But with the new timeline now moved out to 2028, with some speculating 2030, Ark 2 is still quite a ways from becoming a reality. A lot was made of the video I posted back in August 2025 when I talked about the insider information I had received about the future of Survival Evolved's Aquatica. We got an official response from the studio the same day I posted my video, and I received more than a few DMs from Ark community members and YouTube content creators, all asking me for my sources, which I politely declined to give. And from there, it kind of played out the way I was told it would. From that day forward, there were no more dev live streams, and although the patches arrived when they arrived, the last large patch was delayed, and eventually Aquatica's official Discord fell into just total silence. Studio 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 was indeed moved over to handle the rework of Ascended's Survival of the Fittest and content for PixARK Worlds. They started letting dev team members go right around my reporting, and in general, Aquatica was a total shit show from the moment we first saw it with that crazy AI slop trailer to its 14% review score, all the way to how it was seen by many as Snail Games' attempt to nuke the Survival Evolved community once and for all. Overall, the whole thing just had a terrible smell to it and bad optics, especially when Snail attempted to frame it as a 10-year anniversary gift and love letter to Ark fans, but then decided to charge them for it, and to add injury to insult, they spun up official servers which had long been since shut down, and the entire DLC would only be on those servers for a limited time before once again being deactivated. Also, and probably the most egregious of errors, was when Studio 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 pushed Aquatica live, and the fact that it updated the online version of Evolved, breaking all mods for PC players, even if they had not purchased Aquatica, and it took far too long to get that issue sorted out. Now, the dev kit was eventually pushed live, allowing modders to update their mods, but many of those OG modders had moved on long ago from Evolved and were no longer available to update their creations. When I look back on what my Snail sources had told me compared to what went down, they ended up being pretty accurate. Devs that had worked on Aquatica were in the beginning phases of being reassigned to new projects. Besides the updates and fixes that were already in the pipeline for release, the continued work on Aquatica had been paused, which is why players were told another massive patch was coming and are still waiting to this day. And at the time, Snail was actively discussing Aquatica's future and ended up pulling the plug on official servers in January of this year. Also, my sources were right in saying that there would be no more dev live streams, and although the patches arrived when they arrived, as they said they would, the last large patch was delayed, and eventually Aquatica's official Discord just fell into total disarray and silence. Studio Sirens was indeed moved over to handle the rework of Ascended's Survival of the Fittest and content for PixARK Worlds. Snail and Studio Sirens started letting dev team members go right around my original report, despite their announcement stating that they were dedicated to supporting Aquatica for the long run. I'd also say that I took a lot of heat from certain areas of the Ark community for that final Aquatica video I posted about the internal leaks, but in the end, what I said and what came to be were pretty much in sync, and for those of you who supported me during that time, I appreciate it. No current state of Ark breakdown would be complete without at least a little check-in with Snail Games, Ark's publisher. What this outfit does in terms of money mismanagement should be studied at university as a case of what you should never do. And 2025 showed us that despite DAUs looking positive, or daily active users, across all the Ark franchises, this outfit managed a net loss to the tune of millions. However, what we really need to look at are the more recent events, starting off with their stock prices, which up until a few days ago had plummeted to nearly 40 cents a share. Then, out of the blue, despite not releasing anything new or announcing anything groundbreaking, their stock prices soared to over $2 a share, only to see them come crashing back down to under $1. The cause of these crazy fluctuations was the valuation of Snail's stock prices, based on an analysis by Noble Capital. Keep that name in the back of your minds. You see, their stock price had been just recently lowered, and then yesterday was raised back up from $2.75 a share to $3.50 based on Snail renegotiating its Ark license. You see, kind of stealthily, Snail had lowered its monthly spend on Ark licensing from $2 million a month down to $1.5 million, and also changed up where and when it delivers its negotiated $5 million payouts for the delivery of Ark DLCs. Noble Capital is prominently shown on Snail's website, displaying their testimonial to the company and their expert stock analysis. I've also spoken about Noble Capital many times in the past because when you tune into as many of Snail's quarterly financial calls as I have, they always open up the telephone lines for people to ask questions. The only group that ever asks a question, or is possibly the only one ever allowed to ask a question, is, you guessed it, Noble Capital. Seeing Snail's stock prices recover overnight based on that Noble Capital reevaluation certainly raised a few eyebrows, considering their very close ties. Now, I don't know where the $500,000 a month is being cut from the Ark licensing agreement and the payouts to SDE, which then trickle down to Studio Wildcard, but when I see Snail Games and that much of a cut, I get worried. Now, this could be general cost or something bigger, possibly as in job cuts, which I hate to say, but with Snail, you never know, but usually the safest bet is that they're going for maximum revenue return with minimal effort. But there you go, a quick recap for Ark, and it feels good to be back and taking a look at this franchise. If you're new here, please consider hitting subscribe and ringing the notifications bell. If you're on mobile, please swipe to hype the video, and before I go, a quick shout out to all of our hardcore channel members. Until the next one, this is 𝗲𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿